welcome. I know it's after lunch, so hopefully we can keep you entertained. As I was before, SVP Retail Operations. Again, that's our full service end-to-end Amazon channel management. So really any questions or any problems that happen in the Amazon business, even outside of PPC, is really what our team focuses on. I've been, again, working in Amazon for about 14 years. Started an agency, sold the agency, and now here we are working together with Tenuity to try and build the Amazon business.
Awesome. Feel free to come in and take a seat if you guys want. We want you to be comfortable. Yeah, oh, front row, yes, I love it. Awesome. Great. So, chaos, complexity, and change. We often hear our clients come to us, and this is sometimes how they describe their experience with Amazon. However, we also know that just as easily, with the right strategies and the right support, this could be opportunity, options, and odyssey. There is so much for us to be able to do within the Amazon ecosystem. We know that Amazon continues to grow. 1 in 3 Americans have a Prime membership, with the largest audience being millennials. What a huge opportunity to reach the continuing growing shopper. We also know that there are 100 million Prime subscribers worldwide. Even though other retailers continue to grow, Amazon maintains its e-commerce dominance. We know that almost 40% of all e-commerce is done through Amazon. And while we do see some varying statistics here, we know that at least 50% of all shoppers begin their product search on Amazon. So what does this mean? This means that Amazon has truly transcended just that demand capture, demand generation. And we're really looking to Amazon to think about how to build your brand and scale your business. Now, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the impact of the pandemic on Amazon and on our consumers. Phil's going to talk a little bit later about the impact on the supply chain and some of the restrictions that Amazon had for some of our brands. However, as we think about consumer behavior, we know that the pandemic acted as an accelerant for where we were already going and consumer trends that we already were seeing based around convenience and speed and price. If we look at Bank of America at the beginning of 2020, they reported about 16% of all retail was transacted online. About April 2020, just 8 weeks after the pandemic hit, that number jumped to 27%. That means 8 weeks of growth, a decade of growth in just 8 weeks. That's incredible. And I think when we think about how consumers are moving forward, we know that while it may have stabilized, it is not going back. We're also seeing the shift here when we think about traditional brick and mortar categories. So let's take, for example, home improvement. This traditionally is a category where you go in, you ask an expert, you look around, and there's a lot of browsing. We saw and we've seen, in particular, the growth on Amazon. 1.1 million options on Amazon within the home improvement space, that this is starting to shift. And we're seeing that consumer trend shift to really looking at convenience. There are still some safer categories when it comes to consumer loyalty. Think about Luxe Beauty and the Sephora program, even home improvement, but we are seeing a clear shift to convenience shopping. And this is where Amazon comes in. So let's talk a little bit about the supply chain.
So we'll get into more detail on the next one that has an international map on it, but just in general here in COVID, we saw every part of this, every touch point of this get impacted in a negative way, right? From cost increases, raw material cost increases, container shortages, container price increases, coming over plane air freight increases, domestic warehouse space, labor shortages. Every one of these impacted, obviously, not only Amazon, but all of their retail business. And our clients had a really tough time trying to navigate how to solve for this. In our retail operations business, our whole goal is to put contingency plans in place so you can find alternative routes to get your product to Amazon. There isn't just one route. So as we get into more detail on the next slides, we'll go into that. I want to just mention here that there were some pretty tough periods in the Amazon business during COVID. The one I vividly remember is when vendors did not get orders for a couple weeks. They were scheduled, they usually get Monday morning orders, and for multiple weeks they didn't get any orders, and obviously most of our manufacturers and brands were frantic. In those moments, having a team that understands that that's not the first time that that's ever happened at Amazon. It obviously was escalated because of COVID. We had a similar scenario happen 5 years ago where POs didn't come through for a certain time, and it was a technical glitch at Amazon. But I guess the point here is overall we need to have a contingency plan in place, and what we're going to go through in the next slides, you're going to see some of those plays that we're going to go through, so that you're not just one-dimensional on Amazon.
And so while we acknowledge that the pandemic caused many hardships for many people, we also know that in crisis there is opportunity. And that is what part of today is looking at. Where is the opportunity in some of this complexity, some of this chaos, and the inevitable change? So now that we've given you kind of the framework here on the state of, what is an integrated Amazon strategy? What does that mean? And really it's based around 3 core principles: operations, media, and innovation. So as we're thinking about it, Phil and I developed our own flywheel on how to think about this. And the flywheel really continues to spin regardless of whether we're talking about a new product launch or we're talking about specific demand generation or outside factors where we may not know that are happening, whether it's pandemic or things like that. Seasonality too. So to kick us off, we're going to start with operations. One of the key things that I think we talk about with our clients, and we were just speaking about it at lunch, is understanding your team structure. Having the right stakeholders in place and having the collection of team members is absolutely vital. We know that Amazon interacts with so many different areas of our business, and as we continue to grow the different tools, it interacts with even more parts, thinking about brand, merchandising, sales, operations. All of those stakeholders need to come together to understand how to build the business. We really need to think about top to bottom and bottom up goals to ensure that everybody has the same understanding of what we're using Amazon for, and then where does that resourcing come from. I think we've traditionally seen certain budgets come from whether it's sales or marketing teams. Is that still how we should be thinking about it today? Should we be thinking about brand dollars? Should we be thinking about how do we bring in-store dollars and providing support through programs like Amazon Marketing Cloud? However, you can't do any of this if you don't have product on your digital shelf. And so Phil is going to talk a little bit more about how to build that foundation.
That's awesome. So that's what we always call when it comes to clients is foundation, right? So operations, we believe that anything that we do afterwards in marketing is all a product of having a really solid operations and a solid foundation. This slide we're going to spend a little time on, a couple minutes, so bear with me here. If you guys are familiar with all avenues of Amazon, bear with me. If you're not, you'll hopefully learn something here. There's 2 main avenues to work with Amazon. You guys are probably familiar. One is the retail direct, 1P, where it's a brick and mortar relationship, similar, where Amazon's buying product from you, storing it, and selling it at the price they want to sell it at. What we call that is 1P or retail domestic. Inside of that avenue, there's actually multiple ways to work with Amazon. There's an in-network, which means Amazon's ordering their stuff on a certain cadence. It could be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be bi-monthly. Amazon's buying that product based on demand that's come through from the customer. Right? That's how most of the vendor central clients work with. There's also an alternative option in that, and this is one of the contingency plans that we use very often when things don't work out with our in-network POs. We have a dropship backup. That now means that you're actually shipping product out of your warehouse directly to the consumer, right from your warehouse, using Amazon's logistics and their discounted rates, right? So when things don't work out on one side, you still have the dropship as a contingency and a backup. The other side of Amazon, which is now making up about 60% of GMV for Amazon, is the marketplace side. Some people call it 3P, some people call it seller side. That is a consignment model. And on that side, you're shipping product in using Amazon's warehouses and potentially using their fulfillment services to get to the end customer, and you're paying for that. But Amazon doesn't own anything. It's your product and you can have it back at any time. So those are 2 domestic options, and you're really deciding in your business, there's not one that's better than another. A lot of times you'll go out there and you'll hear people say, hey, you have to run a 3P business or you have to run a 1P business. I always say, shouldn't make bold statements like that because I've seen this, I've done this for 14 years. There's always an alternative option to work with Amazon. And there's not a clear-cut answer to say, this business should be 1P or this business should be 3P until you get down to the metrics of what type of product am I selling, what are the dimensions of my product, what category am I in, where is my most efficient freight coming from, and then we make the decision. In a lot of cases, we have hybrid models. We have a lot of clients that are actually using both of those channels, and they're using all 4 of those options. Inside the seller side, you also have those same 2 options. You can let Amazon fulfill your product with FBA, or you can drop ship it directly to the consumer via MFN. So again, you have 2 alternatives. If Amazon's not allowing you to ship more product in, if you have the contingency plan set up, you can still ship out product directly to the customer in a backup in an emergency, so that you're not stuck without being able to sell anything. So then we go on, we take this to the international side, right? And the other side is actually more interesting as you scale your business on Amazon. A lot of people aren't familiar with all the options that you have once you can get out of that domestic model. So as your business scales, you have options to go to direct import. You have options to bring in product from Asia directly into Amazon's FCs. When you do that, you actually have multiple options of direct import. For instance, if you scale your business, let's say you're selling baseball bats, all of a sudden you're getting to quantities where you're selling container quantities. It is now more efficient for you to move to a model where Amazon picks up a container from your factory, brings it directly into their warehouse in the US, and it never touches your domestic warehouse. A lot of people don't even know that that exists. Well, once you start doing that, you've now taken a big chunk out of your supply chain and handed it off to Amazon to handle that portion. It's also much more cost effective for you. Then there's another model that is even less familiar to most people. Is they actually have a program where you can pick up your baseball bat directly at your factory in different quantities and less than container quantities. It's called FCA. And Amazon can actually go to 20 of your factories and pick up different products and consolidate them and bring them over on a container without you having to touch it. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is there's lots of different avenues to work with Amazon, and there's not just one way, and that's the best way. And in a case of an emergency like we saw during COVID, having those contingency plans or those alternative routes is actually what saved a lot of our clients their business, because their 1P domestic business might have gotten shut down, but we quickly changed some of those SKUs over to direct import, and guess what? Amazon was able to get a hold of containers when our vendors weren't able to get a hold of containers in Asia because Amazon had priority. So there's things like that that are just really important. Down here on the last, I put utilize Amazon Global Logistics. That's not that I'm saying you should use it, it's just saying that there is an option that a lot of people aren't aware of. They're building out their entire own infrastructure. They own their own planes, they're releasing their own container ships, they're building their own containers. They have their own trucks in the US, right? So as that scales out, if you think this out 5 or 10 years from now, you're not going to have to use your 3PLs or other types of logistics if the pricing makes sense for you, right? Again, you're going to do the cost analysis yourself. But again, having Amazon in a pandemic, being able to get their own containers, control their own ships, and if you're in that program, you're getting product on the shelf for your customers, and your competition is not, and that's where you can win.
Absolutely, and as we're thinking about an integrated strategy, to Phil's point, you could think about using a number of these options. So once we have that foundation of operations set and we have that strong foundation in place, we think about product launch and new product scale. So thinking about, not just now that we have the inventory, let's think about how does our Amazon media line up with what we're doing online and in store. And I think, again, that pandemic served as an accelerant for that. Consumers are no longer shopping in only one retailer. We're thinking about, how does that consumer journey travel across where our consumer is? So we're thinking about, how does this impact your forecast? How does new products think about, where should that inventory go? Who are our retailers that, where are we meeting our customer? One thing to think about here, as it comes to new product launch, one of the key takeaways is thinking about an Amazon exclusive. I think a lot of brands, when I talk to them about this, it can feel intimidating or scary. And I've done this in the past. My history lies in Luxe Beauty, and obviously at Tenuity, we work with a plethora of categories. But thinking about, it could truly be an exclusive. It could be an exclusive color or, variation. The other thing that we've seen a lot during Q4 is a a GWP. These are particularly popular in the beauty space. So thinking about creating an exclusive bundle for Amazon. And while there's no promises, this has definitely helped with some of those guaranteed buys for Q4. So something to think about as you're building your integrated strategy, as you're thinking about those customer touch points along the way. As we think about an integrated strategy, Sony, our long-term partner and a category leader, really does this well for their new product launches. They work with all of their teams to ensure that there are no product leaks. This is really challenging for a brand like Sony across multiple countries, across multiple platforms. And what they do is they create a singular product strategy launch, and then they roll it out to all their different partners. So this cohesive strategy allows for a really powerful splash when they're launching new products. Something else that we've spoken about with clients is at live pop-up events, whether it's a category like CES or test and try like Poppy, is thinking about, is there a point of purchase right at that demo? People have their Amazon app on their phone. How do you potentially provide a coupon code, or how do we think about getting them in that moment, connecting that in-store or that in-person event to online? The next thing to think about too is if you do have a newer version of your old model, make sure you have those widgets in place on your detail page. And then we move on to creative and media. And Phil and I spoke about this. We could probably spend a whole another hour session on this as well. But as we've mentioned before, customers might interact with your page, on many different platforms. How do we integrate media into these different places? So thinking about A+, detail pages, thinking about, storefronts. It's not a set it and forget it. You really need to be updating your storefront homepage just as much as you're updating your D2C homepage. And when I say that, that seems like a pretty straightforward thing. There are not actually a lot of brands doing that. And that is not an integrated strategy. We need to make sure that when our customer shows up on Amazon, they're seeing the same experience. So we also know that, sponsored products is really table stakes at this point. To be operating on Amazon, we really need to have a strong foundation in sponsored products. DSP is a way for us to gain and retain new clients. But if you're really looking for an integrated strategy, it's time to start thinking about advanced TV. And advanced TV is essentially an overarching term that is referring to streaming content, which goes beyond linear television. This is something that we're seeing brands like Poppy do really well. So Poppy is leveraging their community and their unique voice to not only reach the customer, but continue to grow their base. So Sean and Allison are gonna be chatting a little bit more about their integrated strategy later on, but this is a brand to emulate. They have that full funnel media approach. Not only are they advertising across the funnel, but they're tracking it. And when we think about an integrated approach, it's also in the way we partner with them. We talk about their in-store data and how that is impacting their online sales. We think about, okay, which areas do we need to think about, potentially running more DSP to help support those areas online. Tools like AMC, Amazon Marketing Cloud, can help us do just that. So we're looking at specific DMAs to understand how that new-to-brand customer is reacting in those certain areas. So this is a snapshot of really some of the tools available to us for brand building on Amazon. Something that I want to point out is I often hear it's all pay to play, and that's not true. So as we think about how do we build our brand on Amazon, it's really important that we have a keen understanding of not only how, but when to leverage these different tools. Something that I'm going to continue to recommend to everybody is Amazon Posts. Everybody should be doing this. It's free, and you already have that content from what you're doing on social. So what a great way to connect your social consumer to the Amazon shopping experience. The other thing that I want to point out is that with Amazon Posts, when consumers click that follow button, that is really the key way to gain customers for your My Customer Engagement campaigns, which essentially allows you to email your clients or customers directly. Final thing I'll say here is Prime Day. Don't know if you've heard of it, but it's coming up. And what we're seeing is that even though Prime Day continues to grow, we're still seeing high engagement from customers. Our Prime Day study that's coming out later this month says 88% of people still plan to shop on Prime Day this year, and 40% are more excited about Prime Day this year than last. And then taking it home with technology and test and learn. So as we're thinking about technology, it is so important to think about how to scale your Amazon business. And it's really vital to have a tool that does that. At Tenuity, we use MobiusX. That is one part of it. The other part of it is measurement. So it's really important that we're thinking about, running all this media. How do we continue to not only understand the metrics, but are we selecting the right metrics? You'll hear us talk a lot about ROAS jail. How do we know whether we're there, and how do we think about stretching beyond that? What are the right metrics for our right campaigns? It's also really important for continued internal alignment. There's a lot of times when we're working with brands where we actually go and talk to their sales team, or we go and talk to their brand team, explaining how we're using Amazon to build the brand, and it's not only just a demand capture spot. Two tips here that I'll say on measurement is if you are, you have to be running Amazon attribution. If you are driving any traffic from social to Amazon, you want to be able to track that. If you're a seller, you want to make sure that you are enrolled in the Amazon brand referral bonus program. What this program allows is it credits the brands an average of about 10% of any sales that is from traffic that you drive to Amazon. So you're getting credit for really making the consumer journey easier, which is an incredible tool that we have available to us. Awesome. Again, I could spend a lot of time talking about AMC. It's something I'm really excited about. Tenuity was one of the alpha partners, and we have made a lot of progress on our custom queries. Amazon Marketing Cloud is allowing us access that we have really never had before. What it does is it allows us to understand how that consumer is moving through our advertising funnel. We're looking at custom queries like new to brand, by specific marketing area, by specific type of ASIN or customer. And so we're really able to build these complex and answer complex questions that we weren't before. The other part of it that I'm really excited about is Seismic. And if you haven't heard, Seismic, one of its many uses, and the one I'm excited about, is it really allows advertisers to combine their own library of creative assets with their first-party data and really create thousands of customized ads across all channels. So therefore, you're able to reach the customer not only with their relevant message, but at the best possible moment. And that's when both of these programs start to work together, we're getting a full understanding of how that customer is interacting, not only with media, but with our other platforms. So like I said, this is something I can talk a lot about, and if you're interested in how all these programs work together, come and see us afterwards. And then finally, I'll say test, learn, and innovate. This is the last part of the flywheel, or the first part, depending on where you're starting in your flywheel. But we're in such an exciting time for brands. And yes, there are many challenges, but there are also so many opportunities. So I think the key part of an integrated strategy is to really keep going sometimes and know that not every test is going to be an absolute banner test. We need to think about, what does that test and learn agenda look like? And I know this is focused on Amazon today, but it's really important that you have a test and learn agenda across all marketplaces. This is also an opportunity for you to get your social team involved. How are you thinking about integrating them into your media strategy? So keep a robust test and learn agenda. And then I would say, we're getting to that part of the year where we might be thinking about back half of the year, how do we look at 23 budget? I would encourage you to pitch for a test and learn budget. You all know that Amazon comes out with new functionality every other day, it feels like, and you might not be able to test every new thing, but it's important that you have that budget set aside so that when those tests come up, you're able to leverage it without being stuck in ROAS jail.
I think we'll just summarize it here is in the flywheel, right, is get that foundation built, spend the money to do the foundation, go through the different things that Nancy just talked about, any of those questions that you guys have about any parts of that flywheel, reach out to us. We're really outside, happy to talk about it. In specifics, there's so many programs to do at Amazon, like he said. This is 3 of them: Prime Truck, Amazon Live, and just other advertising opportunities at Amazon. Our brands try these things out, and we've had success in them, and they're not just PPC based, right? We've sold 40,000 units in a day on the treasure truck, right? So there's things you can do that if you're not aware of that you can test with. I can probably name 20 of these types of programs that are outside of PPC, right? So if you're not thinking about those things or not aware of them, reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you about them. Our operations team can take you through them, some of those things and opportunities that you might have with Amazon long term to build your business. So I want to thank you guys for your time, and please reach out to us outside if you want.